as I said, action-packed. So each of these guys represent startups that are leveraging blockchain. Your mission is to start us off with a 2-minute elevator pitch. What are you doing with blockchain? Why don't we start, I mean, I've thought this through carefully. Why don't we start with Assaf Ben, founder of Greeneum Network. Assaf.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Assaf, the founder of Greeneum. In Greeneum, we use targeted AI and blockchain to accelerate the transition from fossil fuels to green energy worldwide. Then we can save funds from governments, and we can create the community power can help us for this transition.
Cool. And what's the role of blockchain and all that?
The role of blockchain in our venture is to create more trust between the entities when it comes to attributes related to energy, like carbon credits, like green certificates, when it comes to understand the history of the transactions, that you want to label them and color them if they come from solar, if they come from wind. So our AI can label the transaction, and the registries happen on the blockchain.
Excellent. All right, how about next up, Tristan Lecomte, co-founder of Tree Token.
Hello, everybody. My story is that I'm a social entrepreneur for 20 years, and in the last 10 years, I've been planting 10 million trees with my social enterprise. So we could say it's great, but actually 10 million trees are cut every day. So how do we go from 10 million trees planted in 10 years to 10 million trees planted every day? We think we need new tech, and for that, blockchain is a great tool because it helps to decentralize, to automatize the transactions. For now, with Pure Projet, we work only for corporates, like Clarins, for example, who is a big tree planter, who is here. But it's not enough. We need to mobilize the financial sector, so that's why we create this fund, which will be tokenized, to then disintermediate Impak Finance, to open Impak Finance to such projects. There is more and more investors who want to make money and make an impact, but it's difficult to find a project and to trace and to look exactly where my money is invested and to bring trust. Blockchain is made for that, so that's why we use it for the tree token.
Do you put each tree on the blockchain?
No, actually, we do, because we're very conscious about the environmental footprint of it, so we have only one mining for the creation of 10 million tree tokens. So you see it's very minimum. We think that the impact per tree will be less than 1 gram of CO2, whereas the tree can sequester up to 300 kilo. So it's still a good deal in terms of environment.
We will come back and talk about environmental impact of blockchain in just a bit. But how about next up, Paul Allard, co-founder of Impak Finance.
Yep, I just came in from Canada, so I need to be awake. So essentially, our mission is to make sure that money is a force for good and can transform and repair the economy. So what we built a marketplace called Impact.eco, where we qualify impact-first companies. So in this marketplace, you'll find B2B and B2C companies qualified by an AI process. And each time you, as a consumer, when you download the app and have access to the app and you start spending with one of those companies, we'll reward you by generating impact coins. And each time you receive these impact coins, you'll be able to respend them worldwide in all these companies that has been qualified in the marketplace. So essentially, we're making responsible spending easy and rewarding. That's what we're doing essentially.
All right, thank you very much. All right, finally, last but not least, Guillaume Marchand, founder of Irene Energy.
Hi, everybody. So at Irene Energy, what we're doing is we're using the blockchain to develop what we call a next-generation back-office platform from the energy industry. So it's unglamorous and it's behind the scene. But the idea is that we use the blockchain to do micropayments on real-time settlements. And that with those two properties, we have a very lean and efficient and powerful platform, back-office platform, that really can have very impactful properties. So one of the things we're doing is in Africa, and we won quite a decent grant from the UK to develop that. And the idea is that with a very lean back office, you reduce financial and contractual frictions that are really standing in the way of electrifying the continent. And well, that's one of the things
Very
we're
good.
doing.
All right, very good. Thank you all for respecting the time. And so now let's go a bit deeper. So again, blockchain is something, as you probably know, that got hugely hyped over the last few years, is now maybe coming down a little bit. But just as people who are in the middle of it, maybe we could just start with the positives. What still excites you about blockchain? And maybe just elaborate a little bit on that. And then we'll get into some of the challenges of leveraging it. But first, what still excites you about it?
I think we have to differentiate between blockchain and crypto. There has been a crazy hype about crypto, and now as the market is going down, this was a bubble. On our side, we like the blockchain technology in the environmental sector because it helps transparency, low transaction cost, automation, and so scaling up potential, as well liquidity for investors, for example. And for now, most of the tokens were utility token, like shares of a company. But the future of blockchain, to me, is the tokenization of assets, for example, in insurance, in real estate, and as well in trees or in any kind of impact project that you can divide in small portions, that you can share, that you can transfer, that you can value. That is all what we're doing here. So this is a great tool, I feel.
I think it's a great opportunity for people to mobilize and make this change that institution will not do in time. So it's up to us here, players, individuals, and citizens, and also these entrepreneurs. And mobilizing is by taking action, and by when we launch our ICO in Canada, we're launching our ICO here in Europe, a legal ICO. It's a good way for people to mobilize and buy and take action and make that transformation with transparency. That's key.
Yeah, I think what excites me, I agree with Christian and Paul about what they say. I will just add that we are in a new financial area that we can change the incentive, and then we can change the world, because the moment that we have new incentives that were not exist before, there is a new financial power that can push to a real change. So the community now, and what we saw, I'm in this industry for a few years, the first token we do was Solar Coin. It was also mainly for incentivizing solar energy production. And we saw the excitement of the different solar producers when they saw that actually they produce energy and they can generate money on the same time. And we see this passionate, if the trend will go on and on, we'll see more and more people adopting green energy in our case and changing the world. So we don't need to rely on the government, on subsidies from the UN.
So really, I mean, it's the ability to do decentralized solutions, not having to wait for government, and really sort of get a sort of communal impact going.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah. Cool.
No, I do agree. The transparency and empowerment that comes with it are really, for me, the two main, the most important and exciting aspects of the blockchain.
So then, if we push forward, so for those who might be getting excited about the technology, what are some of the challenges of actually leveraging it today? It's always, you guys are on the bleeding edge of this. And if you could distill some of the challenges to advice. Yeah. What advice do you have?
One of the biggest things.
We're keeping Paul awake at least.
Yeah, that's it, keeping me awake. No, it's the first challenge. It's explaining that blockchain is not Bitcoin. There's two different worlds. That's the first challenge. And explaining that it's like internet. When I was selling in the 90s internet, it will stick around. Get used to it and get to understand it. You'll have no choice. So that's the idea. So that's the challenge.
Yeah, just explaining it like anything new, right?
Yeah, I think there is as well the digital fracture. Like in our case, we work in developing countries, and not so many people have access to digital and to computers. So then to blockchain, like can I pay Peruvian farmers with ethers or Bitcoin? Reasonably not. So there is a lot of myth that, yeah, blockchain can do this and that, but then when you come into operations, what can it actually do? There is a big, big gap. Maybe it's like in the internet. In the beginning, we thought maybe one day we can make a Visio conference, but we had to wait 20 or 30 years. So it's the same with blockchain, a lot of myth around it.
So would it be fair to say it's a little bit like the internet of the early 90s still?
Yeah, I mean, we are at the similar stage of 94, 93 or 95, where the internet was still slow and people didn't understand the real potential about it. And we see it still in the blockchain. What I can add to what my colleagues here said is there is a technological barrier need to be solved. in the infrastructure, so reduce the cost of transactions, the speed of transactions, of course, and of the carbon footprint of the blockchain, because if we want to change the world with the blockchain and reduce the carbon footprint, we need to verify that the blockchain itself and all the mining behind it is not generating more carbon footprint than the green energy we want to incentivize. So in that sense, there are new protocols coming, and we're also working on proof of stake. There are delegated proof of stake protocols and other very innovative ideas to reinvent or improve the infrastructure, which is similar to the bandwidth that we had in the internet.
So maybe I'll just pick up on that and push on, just to really focus for a second, again, on the potential downsides of the technology. One, maybe it's a little bit less relevant for this group, is clearly, fully unregulated financial markets have been dangerous in human history. So there's certainly some issues on the financial market side. But I think the other one to really push you guys on would be the environmental impacts. So for those who don't know the technology, it's very, very computationally heavy. And so the people will argue that it's generating a lot of electricity consumption if you're not careful. And so how do we think about, is that true? And how do we think about managing the downsides? Paul?
Well, very quickly, before you jump in, first, the technology and the way it evolves goes 3 times or 4 times faster than the internet. So that's the first thing. And secondly, yes, it's now regulated. We were the first North American regulated ICO, and we're doing a regulated ICO here in Paris in November. So that's also a myth that is not regulated. Even though all of the banks in France don't have a clue and they close accounts, that's another issue, but that's it. And third thing, on the technology side, it also evolved, and today we use a technology that has absolutely nothing to do with what we see in terms of usage of electricity, of Ethereum or blockchain or Bitcoins. We use, 3,000 times less than what a Bitcoin uses? 3,000 times less. So there's technologies that are very, very energy efficient today.
Very good.
So that's exactly what I wanted to point out, that Ethereum and Bitcoin are very energivore. They are very polluting, and they have very bad press. But not all technologies, not all blockchains are like that. So we have quite a few, actually, that today are very energy efficient.
Sure, yeah, please, Tristan.
You're our guest, so you speak first.
I'm the only one which is not from France on the audience, on the panel here. Oh,
Canada is not
sorry.
Not
right,
yet.
you were, but not anymore.
French kicked us out.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I mean, even Ethereum community is looking for ways to reduce the carbon impact. So there is a lot of tremendous efforts now happening in the Ethereum community to move to proof of stake, Casper protocol for the ones that understand. And not all computation needs to be done on the blockchain, and that's the nice thing about it. You can do some of it off-chain and some of it on-chain, and then you can optimize the energy efficiency of the blockchain. So there are some groups working on the infrastructure of the and some group working on the applications. So definitely going to be a lot of new innovations. Yeah.
All right, I don't know if you guys have questions, but why don't I open it up, see if the audience wants to ask a few things of our panelists right here. Question.
Hi, had one question in regard of difficulties. I was wondering, as you're saying that the benefit is being transparent, it's how can you ensure that the virtual transactions are really linked to the real things? And I was, for example, thinking about the use of blockchain in diamonds or in the traceability of precious stones. Then there is the issue of connecting the real material with its virtual twin on the blockchain.
Actually, just to hold on a second, great question linking the digital to the actual physical assets. Why don't we see if we want to get 1 or 2 other questions out, and then you guys can jump on them. Do I have another question? Very good. Why don't you stand up and ask your question?
I'm tall, I don't need to stand up. For me, it's more in terms of mining of cryptocurrency and using blockchain technology and the amount of energy that's used. I'm a believer that I think it's time for people that are involved in the environment to get involved in the conversation now to change mining practices than to wait for someone to say that mining is no good at all because it has created so much value and it's not something that's going to be gone. So I was wondering, how do you think you will influence the processes behind the technology in order to have sustainable solutions?
So how can we all put pressure on that sector? Do I have one more question before we let them rip on these? And one more? Come on. It's all clear? You understand everything about blockchain, social impact? All right, anyway, good enough. All right, so one is, I mean, definitely this link to the real world. Let's jump on that, and if you have other thoughts on...
So rapidly, it's the way you design your blockchain project. That's key. So be aware of how we do it. As an example, each time in our impact ecosystem, each time you do a real transaction with a qualified impact company, which we know and we know we trace the transaction and we issue a coin only when it's done in a real life. And we were also, when we launched an ICO and the ICO in France again in November, full KYC, know your client process. So it's the way you design a blockchain project.
Yeah, and on the diamond for products, for example, with Pure Projet, we already have installed a blockchain for supply chain in the cosmetic sector, for example, for roses in Turkey, or even in France for blackcurrant burgeons supply chain, and it's very useful. You still have the issue that who inputs the data. You can always have a fraud, but what is good is that blockchain allows you to register in a ledger which is decentralized, many information regularly, and this nobody can come back on it and modify it or hack it on its own. So it's a great way to have transparency and, for example, to put your claim on a dashboard or to follow a precious product with all the historicals where it has gone and who it has been given to. And for that, blockchain is really perfect. Like we developed as well a blockchain registry for carbon for the projects we develop on the Ethereum, and it's great. And about the technologies, actually, the Bitcoin was demanded a lot of energy, Ethereum already much less, and you already have technologies such as Stellar or Quantum, which don't use mining or a mining way that is called proof of stake. That is much less energy intensive, so it already exists. I think it's like the first car or the first solar panel was not effective at all, but now more and more it becomes better.
Just to say, do you find the people driving crypto are understanding some of these issues?
Yeah, actually, in the crypto sector, I think there is two types. There is a new rich guy who says you're going to be a billionaire because you're going to bet on Bitcoin, and you have a whole other crowd which is into crypto because they want to decentralize the power of banks, decentralize as well democracy. There is an amazing movement called liquid democracy. You can check on Democracy Earth, for example, where we are working on how we can use the blockchain to organize votes and a perfect democracy managed by a machine where nobody can corrupt the system. I think this is the future of politics as well.
Anyway, and that part of the community is more open to the energy issues.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, very good. Okay.
And just as an example, 60% of the one that bought the Impact coin last year never touched crypto before. And that's what we're going mainstream, because there's a purpose behind what we're doing. And each of these cryptocurrencies has a purpose. So that's what we're attracting, not the crypto geeks and the speculators, but the real world, people that wants to change the world.
All right, we have time for one more question.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm just wondering about the regulatory framework around cryptocurrencies, ICOs. I don't know, Paul, you mentioned you guys were launching an ICO in France. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that for us?
Yeah, just wide open, you know, the proper role of regulation in helping to structure the space, some of the interfaces. Where do you see it creating value and where should it hold back? Let us hear. Great question.
Yeah, so when it comes to the regulatory framework, of course, you should follow the venture you want to be involved, see where they are established. Some markets are more advanced already in the regulation structure they do, like Switzerland, Gibraltar. Now I heard also France is becoming much more open for blockchain technology and also for crypto or new cryptocurrencies. Other markets like the United States, that they have interest maybe to protect the value of the US dollars, they are more careful in the way they do it. But definitely you should check the KYC needed, the AML, anti-money laundering
Great.
Yeah.
procedures.
So just
Paul,
rapidly,
and then-
Canada is one of the first that issued a framework. We abided with them, and here in France, effectively, they're very, very proactive, and the Impact coin will be issued with 6 months of discussion with the AMF here in France. So they're very, 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 very proactive.
I think as a conclusion, I'd say that the more regulation, the better in that space.
Last question from me. Why don't you just tell us a little bit your vision, where you think you could be in 3 years if you really, push this technology? What's your ambition? Start with you, Tristan.
Yeah, again, I want to add that when you want to combine the real-world application with the blockchain, which is totally digital, you have a gap you need to bridge. It's not like the Bitcoin, which is only digital assets. So there is a strong validation which is needed. We have been developing the proof of green protocol that can really verify and validate if the energy transactions come from green energy or non-green energy. And where we aim to be is really to engage the clean energy community and clean energy companies that want to reach to new audience and interact with us. We have a marketplace, and to be the leading company in that sector, definitely.
Awesome. Next
I
up.
would say that in 5 years, I hope that here it's not called ChangeNOW, but we did change. That's because we need to go mainstream. And there's a very urgent issues, and the institution, specifically the financial institution and the financial economy, is not moving. We need to make them move. That's my dream.
The Job Done Conference. Okay, next up. Oh, yeah, please.
No, I'd say if you ask people in the blockchain 2 years ago what will happen today, they would have not guessed where we are. So I cannot answer for 3 years.
Fair enough. One more.
Okay, I'll try to be more optimistic than you, maybe less than you, because I think you're very optimistic. On our side, our goal is to plant 50 million trees in the next 3 years. So to triple what we've been doing, we planted 10 million trees in the last 10 years, but now we want to accelerate. And in 5 years, 250 million trees. We need this change. So I hope you will give us a green light in 2 years, yes.
Thank you. A big ChangeNOW round of applause for our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much.